What does it actually take to build trust when you are completely terrified of being seen? Welcome to this explainer where we're going right under the hood of Claudia Reid's Taste of Her Name to deconstruct its absolutely incredible narrative mechanics. Now, if you read the source text, you already know just how gripping and emotionally resonant it is, but today we're breaking down the specific architectural blueprint of intimacy that makes this story work so incredibly well. We're going to explore why understanding this exact blueprint can make us better writers and much more empathetic readers. Reid lays out her entire thesis right out of the gate. She says, this is a love story about being seen and choosing each other anyway. So she isn't just giving us a simple romance here. No, she's crafting a meticulous, trauma-informed exploration of the sheer terror and honestly, the ultimate beauty of lowering your defenses and allowing someone else to truly perceive you. So here is our roadmap for the breakdown. We'll start with how two guarded souls collide, then explore the power of dual POV, map out Act 1, the spark, and then jump into Act 2, deepening and breaking. Finally, we'll wrap up by looking at architectural healing and pacing. All right, Section 1, two guarded souls collide, setting the foundation in Queens. Let's look at who we're actually dealing with here. We've got Roman, an ex-Marine turned chef who's actively seeking quiet. And then we have Claudia, a brilliant, highly guarded Black woman who's just flat out exhausted by the demands of the world. The author hooks us instantly by placing these two incredibly guarded people into a quiet, after-hours restaurant space. They are forced to simply observe each other. It's a fantastic high-tension setup before a single word is even spoken. And this brilliantly illustrates the thematic contrast of their trauma. On one side, you have Roman battling literal ghosts of war, PTSD, night terrors, and what he refers to as the static in his head. On the other side, Claudia is battling the exhausting, performative armor she has to wear every single day. She's dodging corporate microaggressions and carrying a massive cultural weight. They are both wearing incredibly heavy armor, but that metal was forged in completely different fires. Moving on to Section 2, the power of dual POV. Theory versus practice on the page. Now this is where it gets really fascinating. Reid uses a strict dual point of view journal format to build immediate tension. Just look at day 1. In Roman's entry, he actually feels the static in his head quiet down the second he sees her. For him, her presence is peace. But in Claudia's entry, she is totally terrified, precisely because she realizes he is actually seeing right through her carefully constructed armor. It's the exact same moment in time, but the emotional realities are completely polarized. So the real takeaway here is that this dual perspective lets us, the readers, experience the massive gap between their internal vulnerability and their external stoicism. Roman is desperately seeking a safe harbor, while Claudia deeply fears being perceived as a fantasy or just some experiment. The true narrative tension doesn't come from dramatic, shouting arguments. It comes entirely from what they absolutely refuse to say out loud to one another. Okay, let's jump right into Section 3, Act 1, the spark, covering days 1 through 7. Let's map out the pacing to see exactly how Act 1 orchestrates this initial collision. The timeline of this first week is so deliberate. We move from that silent, charged look on day 1 to Roman boldly admitting he wants everything on day 4. This careful, steady escalation leads up to a deeply intentional kiss on day 6, and finally, sharing a safe space in his home on day 7. The pacing literally forces you to feel every single brick of trust being laid down. Zooming in on day 6, we get this beautifully crafted interaction. When Claudia says, "I don't do casual," she's signaling that she needs words. She needs verbal confirmation that she isn't just a passing face. And Roman, he provides that steady honesty, replying simply, "I'm looking for you." Seeing this play out on the page shifts something vital inside of her. It's the exact reassurance her specific trauma requires to actually begin letting go. Which brings us to Section 4, Act 2, Deepening and Breaking. This covers days 8 through 23. Act 2 is where the connection gets deep, but it's also where the outside world finally crashes in. Notice how systematically the emotional stakes get ramped up here. Step 1, on day 9, is pure vulnerability, as Roman shares his war stories. Then Step 2 hits on day 12. A microaggression from the outside world spikes Claudia's fear, rudely reminding her why she wears armor in the first place. That naturally leads to Step 3, the midpoint, on day 15. A truth collision that forces them to actually define what they are doing. Their quiet, isolated healing bubble is now being threatened by external pressures. And that leads us directly into day 16, Roman's trigger. A sudden PTSD moment causes Roman to completely shut down, leaving Claudia feeling totally shut out in the cold. This kicks off the breaking point of the narrative arc. It shows us that, hey, healing is never perfectly linear. Roman's trauma abruptly halts their forward momentum and plunges them both right back into a defensive state. This part brilliantly illustrates how interconnected their coping mechanisms really are. On day 17, to protect herself from Roman's sudden coldness, Claudia retreats. She pulls back, which immediately reopens her own deep, old wounds of not feeling truly seen or valued. One partner's triggered trauma instantly activates the other's defensive walls. The result? A painful, quiet war where neither one of them is communicating. The tension completely boils over on day 20, the breaking point. Just listen to their conflicting internal realities here. Claudia is thinking, I don't know if I'm enough for you. Meanwhile, Roman is absolutely terrified, thinking, I don't know if I'm safe with you. So the crucial takeaway of day 20 is that their argument isn't about a lack of love at all. It is rooted in a profound, mutual terror of inadequacy and a perceived lack of safety. Then the pacing hits a wall of deafening silence on day 21. Both of them are journaling, both of them ache, both miss each other terribly. By keeping us locked in that dual POV, we get to feel the agonizing weight of their separation. You know exactly how much they care for each other, but you also see how their trauma is keeping them trapped in completely separate rooms. Finally, let's look at Section 5, Architectural Healing and Pacing, the overarching narrative design. Let's zoom out for a second to review this absolute masterclass in narrative pacing. When we map the structural pillars side by side, the look on day 1, the first kiss on day 6, the midpoint definition on day 15, the breaking point on day 20, and finally Roman's realization on day 23, we can see how strictly adhering to this timeline works. It ensures that every single micro-tension and every subsequent release feels earned, realistic, and completely grounded in human psychology. And that leads us to day 23, where Roman makes a really profound choice. He writes, I'm not losing her because I was afraid to fight for her. This powerful realization acts as the vital narrative pivot back toward healing. It proves the story's ultimate thesis, that trust isn't just some magical state you happen to fall into. It is an active, brave, daily choice to keep showing up. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. As you reflect on the incredible architecture of this story, I want to leave you with this final thought. What does it truly take to stop running and let yourself be seen? This text is a beautiful testament to the profound bravery required to tear down our own protective walls. Thanks for joining me as we mapped out this amazing blueprint of intimacy. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.